Right now, somewhere in a corporate boardroom in Paris or, Seattle, executives are probably having a full-blown panic attack over your grocery receipt.
Oh, absolutely. They are sweating over it.
Because almost overnight, the simple act of buying a coffee or like a bag of apples has become a weapon on a geopolitical battlefield.
Right. And you usually don't think of yourself as stepping into an international incident when you walk out your front door for a latte.
No, not at all. I mean, it feels like the most ordinary low-stakes transaction in the world.
You're just, checking items off a to-do list. It feels completely detached from global affairs.
Exactly.
But in our current hyper-connected environment, that simple transaction carries an unprecedented layer of political weight. Like your purchase, or even your conscious decision to withhold that purchase, essentially functions as a political statement.
Yeah, and suddenly you are part of a globally coordinated consumer boycott.
Which is wild to think about.
It really is. So, welcome to this deep dive. If you're joining us, it's because you're that person who wants to look past the surface level news headlines, right?
Mhm.
You want to truly understand the mechanics of the world around you.
You want to get smart on complex topics without drowning in all that corporate jargon.
Exactly. And today we have a fascinating source to help us decode exactly what happens when everyday commerce collides with global conflict.
It's a really great paper.
Yeah, we are examining a newly published 2026 academic paper from AIB Insights. It's by Dr. Mamoun Ben-Mamoun, and the title is From Conflict to Consumer Backlash.
It's a remarkably timely piece of research, honestly. It provides this structured lens to view events that have just been dominating the news cycle for years now.
Yeah. So our mission today is to decode the corporate playbook. We're going straight into the mechanics of how seemingly invincible global brands try to survive when they, well, suddenly become the primary target of politically driven consumer boycotts.
Which is happening more and more.
Right. We want to know how they react, what specific strategies they deploy, and ultimately if those strategies actually work when the pressure is really on.
But before we delve into the mechanics of these corporate strategies, I do need to establish a very clear, crucial ground rule for our discussion today.
Yeah, absolutely.
The source material we're examining directly addresses the deeply polarized, ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict. And because of that, I want to be entirely explicit with you, the listener. We are not taking sides.
Right.
We are not endorsing the viewpoints, the narratives, or the actions of any group, nation, or organization mentioned here. Our sole focus for this deep dive is to impartially convey the facts, the data, and the corporate strategies exactly as they are presented in this academic study.
Thank you for setting that baseline. It's incredibly important we state that up front.
Of course.
And to truly understand the paralyzing position these corporations found themselves in, we really do need to look at the reality on the ground, just as it's outlined in Dr. Ben-Mamoun's paper.
The context is vital here, and the paper lays out a very specific timeline. So the conflict reignited on October 7, 2023, when Hamas militants attacked Israel.
Right.
The study notes this resulted in over 1,200 deaths, the majority being civilians, and nearly 250 hostages taken. And then, in retaliation, Israel launched an extensive military operation.
And the scale of that response is what the paper really focuses on regarding the boycotts, right?
Yes. The scale of that response, as documented in the study up to December 2025, created a severe humanitarian crisis. The paper cites over 71,271 Palestinian deaths, again, with the majority being women and children.
Wow.
It also details repeated displacement of Gaza's 2.3 million residents, destroyed infrastructure, and international agencies confirming actual famine conditions.
Yeah, I mean, the sheer scale of this crisis documented in the paper is what sparked such unprecedented global outrage. The international narratives just polarized so rapidly.
They did, very rapidly.
And sitting right in the middle of that polarization, you have these multinational corporations, or MNCs, as the paper calls them. They found themselves caught in this sweeping geopolitical vice grip.
It's a brutal position for a business.
Totally. On one side, particularly in Western markets, you have pro-Israel stakeholders, policymakers, and advocacy groups pressuring these companies to support Israel, right? And they're framing these boycotts as anti-Semitic.
Yes, it's a massive source of pressure.
But on the exact opposite side, in Arab and Muslim majority markets and among global pro-Palestinian activists, there is just relentless pressure to boycott these exact same brands for any perceived complicity or ties to Israel.
It is the ultimate corporate pressure cooker. I mean, you have deeply held moral convictions clashing across completely different global markets.
You're right.
And the corporation is just desperately trying to maintain its operational footing without completely alienating half of its consumer base.
So when that pressure cooker explodes and the boycotts begin trending on like every digital platform, companies don't just improvise. The paper outlines a specific framework they rely on.
Yeah, they have a playbook.
Right, rather than just a random scramble, there's an established typology for how corporations respond to boycotts, ranging from simple pushback to fundamental restructuring.
Okay, let's unpack this. How do they actually react?
Well, the study leans on a four-strategy typology. The first, and honestly often the most reflexive, is defensive denial.
Defensive denial,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
This is essentially rejecting the legitimacy of the boycott entirely. The company might issue statements claiming the allegations are unfounded or exaggerated or just based on misinformation.
So they're trying to contain the narrative by flatly saying, we are not doing what you accuse us of doing.
Exactly. It's a containment strategy.
But I imagine if consumers have receipts or really strong convictions, simply saying you're wrong isn't enough. Like,
Yeah.
there must be a step where companies actually try to appease the boycott. There is, and that is the second strategy, corrective action. This moves beyond just words into tangible fixes.
Okay, so actually doing something.
Right. The company addresses the grievance.
Yeah.
They might alter their supply chain or sever ties with a controversial vendor or make public financial commitments to rectify whatever caused the initial outrage.
So they're trying to demonstrate that they hear the consumer and are actively taking steps to fix the specific complaint.
Exactly. They want to show they're listening.
That makes sense for a localized issue. But what if the problem is like systemic? What if the boycott isn't just about one supplier, but about the company's entire presence in a region?
Well, that requires the third strategy, which is much deeper: strategic adaptation.
Strategic adaptation.
Yeah, this is not a quick fix or a PR statement. It is a long-term structural realignment of their business model or their CSR.
Their corporate social responsibility initiatives. Just to clarify for the listener, when we talk about CSR, we're basically talking about the internal rule book a company uses to outline how they intend to be a good corporate citizen, right? Like their ethical guidelines, environmental goals, community investments.
Precisely. It's their ethical blueprint. So strategic adaptation means rewriting that rulebook to fundamentally align with what the local stakeholders in a specific region actually expect.
Oh, wow. So that's a huge shift.
It is. It often involves renegotiating franchise agreements, decentralizing power, or even taking a significant short-term financial hit just to restructure their regional autonomy. It's painful, but sometimes completely necessary for survival.
And I'm guessing the final strategy is the one every company wishes they had done in hindsight.
Oh, without a doubt, you would be correct. The fourth strategy is proactive measures.
Proactive, so getting ahead of it.
Exactly. This is the gold standard of crisis management. It involves deeply engaging with social issues, understanding regional sensitivities, and building immense local goodwill long before a crisis ever hits.
So it is essentially putting capital in the reputational bank before you ever need to make a withdrawal.
That's a great way to put it.
I want to make sure I'm visualizing the mechanics of this correctly, though. Let's use an analogy.
Okay, go for it.
If a company is a house and a consumer boycott is a fire blazing on the front lawn, defensive denial is standing on the porch, looking at the flames, and telling the neighbors, there is no fire here, you're all imagining it.
Right, just total denial.
Then, corrective action is running out with a fire extinguisher to tackle the flames directly.
Yep.
Strategic adaptation is realizing the neighborhood has changed, tearing down the wooden house and rebuilding it entirely with fireproof materials.
A structural change. Exactly.
And proactive measures would be like installing a state-of-the-art sprinkler system 10 years before a spark ever ignited.
I think that captures the escalation perfectly.
But I do want to dig into the psychology of that first strategy, though.
Wow.
Is defensive denial, standing on the porch, ignoring the fire, is that ever actually a viable mechanism for survival?
It's a fair question.
Because in the age of social media, where information moves instantly, telling angry consumers that they are misinformed seems like a guaranteed way to escalate their anger. You are basically calling your customers liars. Why would a company ever choose that route?
Well, it is a highly risky maneuver, and the study addresses the psychology behind it directly. The paper explicitly warns that defensive denial frequently backfires.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah. If the public perceives the denial as insincere, evasive, or, overly reliant on legal jargon, it validates the consumer's suspicion that the corporation is hiding something. It makes the backlash significantly worse.
So it just adds fuel to the fire.
Exactly. However, the study notes it does have a very narrow, very specific use case.
Wait, really? When would that be?
In the extremely early hours or days of a boycott, when rampant misinformation might be spreading across social platforms.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes the allegation is genuinely fabricated. In those instances, a swift, factual, and transparent denial can sometimes contain the rumor before it solidifies into an accepted public narrative.
So the mechanism relies on catching the falsehood before confirmation bias sets in among the consumer base.
Exactly. But it is not a sustainable long-term strategy if the underlying anger is real.
Right. It's a temporary shield, not a lasting solution. And what's fascinating here is how the paper shows that sprawling global companies rarely just pick one strategy from the playbook and apply it everywhere.
No, they don't. It's much more complex than that.
Right. The response is almost entirely dictated by the corporate architecture, specifically when we look at international franchise models. The actions taken by the executives at the corporate headquarters might completely contradict the survival tactics deployed by the local partners operating the stores on the ground.
That disconnect between headquarters and local operators is the core tension of modern global business. And the paper illustrates this tension using two really prominent case studies.
Let's get into those.
The first is a brand that virtually everyone listening to this has interacted with at some point, Starbucks.
Oh, yeah. Starbucks is the quintessential example of a brand caught in this dual pressure vice grip. We really need to lay out the timeline of the dilemma they faced because the pressure came at them from two completely opposite directions almost simultaneously.
It was a perfect storm.
It really was. It started in their home market, the United States, on October 9th, 2023, so just 2 days after the initial Hamas attack. The Starbucks labor union, Workers United, posted a pro-Palestinian statement on social media.
Right.
This immediately sparked fierce domestic backlash. Pro-Israel groups, politicians, and consumers in the U.S. began calling for boycotts of Starbucks, associating the corporate entity with the union's stance.
The association was immediate.
Exactly. So to protect themselves from this domestic pressure, Starbucks deployed defensive denial. They swiftly filed a lawsuit against their own union to legally and publicly distance the corporate entity from the union's messaging.
Their mechanism there was legal separation. They were trying to send a clear signal to their American market. That statement does not represent our corporate values. We did not authorize it.
Right. That's them, not us. But meanwhile, halfway across the globe in the Middle East and North Africa, the Mananea region, a completely different fire was starting.
A massive fire.
Yeah, pro-Palestinian activists viewed Starbucks as a prominent symbol of American corporate hegemony. They launched widespread viral boycott campaigns against the brand across the entire region, alleging that Starbucks was providing financial support to the Israeli government or military.
So they're getting hit from both sides.
Exactly. Starbucks headquarters is fighting a fire in the U.S. for being perceived as too pro-Palestinian by some, while simultaneously fighting a sweeping inferno in the Middle East for being perceived as pro-Israel. How does a company structure a response to that?
Well, according to the paper's framework, Starbucks leaned heavily into defensive denial on the global stage as well.
So they denied the Middle East claims, too.
Yes, they issued extensive public statements emphasizing strict corporate neutrality. They clarified the mechanics of their operations, stating unequivocally that they did not fund any government or military operations anywhere in the world.
Trying to set the record straight.
Right. They condemned violence against civilians universally. They essentially attempted to use facts to neutralize the emotion of the boycott.
But they didn't just stop at denial, did they? I mean, they tried to introduce the second strategy as well.
They did. They layered in a tangible piece of corrective action.
Okay, what was that?
Specifically, the Starbucks Foundation, in conjunction with their regional operating partner, made a $3 million joint donation to the World Central Kitchen to provide humanitarian food aid in Gaza.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they were trying to demonstrate empathy and address the humanitarian concern directly.
But the critical question is whether that combination of denial and, corrective philanthropy actually worked to win back the consumer. Did it work?
The data indicates it did not.
Wow, not at all.
No. The paper notes that public skepticism remained deeply entrenched, and the boycott pressure was sustained over the long term. The denial-based messaging, even when it was paired with a donation, just left the firm looking reactive rather than principled.
So it felt like a PR move.
Exactly. The consumers felt the corporation was managing a PR crisis, not taking a genuine moral stance.
And there was a very real, tangible cost to that strategic failure, which the paper highlights brilliantly. because to understand the fallout, we have to look at the mechanics of how Starbucks actually operates in the Middle East.
This is a crucial point.
Yeah, because the corporate executives in Seattle aren't the ones hiring baristas in Kuwait or Dubai, right?
Correct. They operate through what is called a master franchise model. This is so important to understand. Starbucks doesn't actually own those international stores.
Wait, they don't?
No. Since 1999, their partner in the Minnane region has been the Al Shaya Group, which is a sprawling, privately held Kuwaiti family business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Al Shaya assumes all the financial risk, they sign the leases, and they hire the local employees. They merely license the right to use the Starbucks name, the recipes, and the branding.
So underneath that global logo, it is entirely local ownership and local management. The people running the stores and working the registers are part of the local regional community.
Yes. But because of the boycotts, the financial deterioration was so severe that Al Shaya actually considered selling a 30% stake in their Starbucks franchise business just to raise capital.
That is massive.
It is. And ultimately, the pressure forced them to announce the termination of over 2,000 jobs in early 2024.
2,000 jobs.
Yeah. They explicitly cited the challenging trading conditions caused by the Gaza war and the sustained consumer boycotts.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This highlights a fascinating breakdown in consumer psychology.
How so?
Well, think about it. The people losing their livelihoods. The entity taking the crippling financial hit. This was a Kuwaiti family business and thousands of regional employees.
Right.
But the consumers participating in the boycott didn't factor that in. That green siren logo on the cup was just a glowing target. The global identity of Starbucks completely and utterly overpowered the reality of the local ownership.
It really did.
The consumer wasn't punishing Seattle, they were punishing their own neighbors, but the symbol of the brand was just too potent to ignore.
That is the defining takeaway from the Starbucks case study. In a highly polarized, politically charged environment, the perceived national origin of a brand in this case, an iconic symbol of American capitalism, can completely overshadow deeply rooted regional ties.
It's all about perception.
Exactly. When a consumer looks at that storefront, they don't see a Kuwaiti business enterprise. They see American corporate power.
So Starbucks proved that in a regional crisis, a global logo is a toxic liability. If you are a local business owner holding that toxic franchise contract, your only logical survival move is to, well, sever the tie entirely.
Which brings us perfectly to what happened in the paper's second case study. It explores a company that took a drastically different approach.
Yeah, it leads us directly into the actions of the French retail giant Carrefour. Their situation demonstrates the mechanics of the third strategic adaptation.
It's a masterclass in it, really.
It is. So Carrefour is a sprawling international grocery chain headquartered in France. And much like Starbucks, they faced intense, paralyzing boycotts in the Middle East, specifically concentrated in Jordan. Right.
Palestinian activists accuse Carrefour of supplying food and resources to the Israel Defense Forces. Now, Carrefour headquarters fiercely denied this. They utilized defensive denial, stating the allegations were completely false. But the consumer pressure didn't stop.
No, it didn't. The pressure escalated. And the corporate response here split into two entirely divergent paths, which really highlights the shifting power dynamics between a global headquarters and a local franchisee.
Yeah, so Carrefour HQ in France looked at the collapsing sales and the reputational damage in Jordan and essentially decided the market wasn't worth the geopolitical headache. They chose to withdraw entirely.
Just packed up and left?
Basically, yeah. But their master franchisee for the region, a prominent UAE-based conglomerate called Majid Al Futtaim, or MAF, had a very different perspective.
Very different.
Right, because MAF held the exclusive rights to operate the Carrefour brand across 12 regional markets. They had immense capital invested in the physical infrastructure and the workforce. MAF wasn't going to just walk away and let their business collapse because of a logo. They couldn't afford to. So MAF executed a remarkable maneuver of strategic adaptation paired with proactive measures.
The speed and scale of their pivot is what makes this case study so significant. We really have to walk through the timeline because it is a fascinating piece of corporate maneuvering.
It happened so fast.
It did. On November 4, 2024, MAF publicly announced the permanent closure of Carrefour in Jordan, but they didn't board up the windows or lay off the staff.
No.
Almost simultaneously, they launched a brand new grocery chain called Hypermax. They designed Hypermax to embody a culturally resonant local Arab identity.
Right, a totally new look.
Yeah, and they retained the exact same staff, They kept the exact same physical buildings and supply chains. They essentially scraped the French Carrefour logo off the building and installed the Hypermax branding overnight.
It's incredible.
And they didn't just isolate this to Jordan. They aggressively rolled this new identity out across Oman, Bahrain, and Kuwait, too.
They executed a comprehensive regional rebranding to preserve their market presence and distance themselves from the geopolitical fallout associated with the French headquarters.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though, regarding the psychology of the consumer.
Okay.
It's the exact same grocery store. It's the same aisles, the same produce, the same cashiers ringing you up. Does simply changing the sign above the door actually satisfy a deeply held, politically motivated boycott?
That's a fair point.
I mean, it's almost like a witness protection program for a grocery store. Don't consumers see right through that mechanism and realize it's the exact same company underneath?
It is a logical skepticism for sure. But the paper argues that this strategy is highly effective, and it introduces a vital concept to explain the consumer psychology behind why it actually works. The author, Dr. Ben-Mamoun, calls it the halo brand.
The halo brand. Okay, how does that mechanism function?
Well, in traditional marketing, the halo effect occurs when a consumer's positive feelings about one product spill over and positively influence their perception of another product by the same company.
Sure, like if you love a brand's phone, you'll probably trust their headphone.
Exactly. Dr. Ben-Mamoun adapts this concept for geopolitical crisis management. A halo brand is a locally or regionally embedded entity that carries authentic cultural legitimacy and deep consumer trust.
So in this scenario, the franchisee, MAF, is acting as the halo brand.
Exactly. MAF acted as a reputational buffer between the toxic global brand and the local consumer. Because MAF is a deeply established, highly visible UAE-based conglomerate, they possess their own independent reservoir of local trust.
Ah, I see.
Furthermore, because of the mechanics of their franchise agreement, they had the contractual autonomy to actually decouple their local operations from Carrefour.
I think the best way to understand this psychology is to compare it to a human relationship.
Well, let's hear it.
It's like, if your friend does something terrible, you might refuse to associate with them anymore, right? But if their cousin, who you've known, respected, and trusted for years, comes to you and says, hey, I've cut ties with them too, I'm just focusing on our local community now, you are likely to maintain your trust in the cousin.
Right.
The local franchisee, MAF, is basically the trusted cousin.
That analogy captures the dynamic perfectly. By dropping the French name and wrapping their operations in the culturally resonant Hypermax identity, MAF proved to the local consumers that they were actually listening.
They took real action.
Yes, they demonstrated an understanding of the cultural sensitivities and proved through structural action that their primary allegiance was to the local market, not the global headquarters. They validated the consumer's grievance by severing the tie.
When you look at the mechanics of this, it highlights a profound shift in how we understand global business architecture.
It really does.
We traditionally assume that the corporate headquarters in Paris or Seattle holds all the leverage. We assume they dictate the strategy and local partners just, fall in line.
That's the old way of thinking.
Right. But in this geopolitical crisis, the local franchisee demonstrated vastly superior survival instincts. They were the ones who successfully executed strategic adaptation, preserving jobs and market share, while the global HQ essentially capitulated and exited the market.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it proves that in regions heavily reliant on master franchise models, the local partners are not merely administrative branches executing orders.
Right. They're not just middle managers.
No, they are sophisticated entities actively managing severe geopolitical risk. They possess the agility and the cultural fluency required to innovate and keep the business functioning when the global brand becomes a total liability.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We started this deep dive by talking about how an ordinary coffee run or a trip to the grocery store can transform into a geopolitical statement.
So it all comes back to that receipt.
It does. What Dr. Ben-Mamoun's research in AIB Insights reveals is that your collective voice, expressed through your purchasing power, has earth-shattering influence in the corporate world. You actually possess the capability to force a multinational behemoth to fundamentally alter its global architecture.
The consumer holds the ultimate leverage.
And the next time you see a major brand embroiled in a scandal or facing a sweeping boycott, you don't have to just blindly consume their PR statements anymore. You now possess the decoder ring for corporate crisis management.
You can see right through the messaging.
Exactly. You
Mhm.
can look at their specific actions and identify exactly which of the four strategies they are deploying. Are they relying on defensive denial and just hoping the news cycle moves on?
Or are they offering a minor corrective action to appease the anger?
Right, or are they attempting a deep structural strategic adaptation because they realize the market dynamics have permanently shifted? You can see the mechanics behind it all now.
As you consider the true weight of your purchasing power, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over a provocation that stems directly from the mechanics of the Carrefour and Hypermax transition.
Let's hear it.
We just examined how a local master franchisee successfully saved their own regional enterprise by severing ties with a controversial global brand and establishing their own trusted local halo brand.
Right.
If that local operator already controls the physical infrastructure, manages the supply chain, employs the staff, and commands the consumer trust, what happens when those sprawling regional franchisees wake up one day and realize they don't actually need the massive global headquarters at all?
Wow. That is a deeply unsettling question for corporate executives relying on international licensing fees. The balance of power might be shifting a lot faster than they realize.
The whole new world.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking past the surface narratives. Keep asking the hard questions about how the world actually operates. And the next time you step out to buy a latte or a bag of apples, remember just how much geopolitical influence you're holding in your wallet.